Welcome. This podcast is created to explore the many different ways people move through our world, especially when life, health, injury, circumstance, or the environment can make everyday experiences easier or harder in different ways. We all experience the world differently at different points in our lives. And by listening to one another, we hope that we can build more awareness, empathy, and understanding. The goal is not to define anybody by a label, but to learn from real experiences so that we can design homes, workplaces, technology, public spaces, services, and communities that work better for people. We welcome today Ellie Griffin. Thank you so much for joining us, Ellie, and being willing to share a little bit about your experience. Before we jump in, I just want to tell you there's no right or wrong language, right? So, no questions that could possibly have a wrong answer. So, please, whatever words you feel most comfortable and true for you, please use those. The next 20 minutes or so are all about you. So, please guide the conversation for us. Feel free to jump in. Really appreciating you help us better understand what a more inclusive world could look like. I guess the first thing is to do is to say hi, and can you just tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, hiya. I'm Ellie Griffin. My pronouns are she, her, and I have autism and ADHD. ADHD is a new term that I'm using. Well, new for me at least. And then the depression, the anxiety that tends to come with that. Um, I work as a digital communications officer for Media Cymru, but that's not the most important thing about me. I love swimming and plant and nature and singing. And I also am a big political activist as well. So I have the thoughts of a political activist, at least, maybe, not the following of one.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, um, ease us into a little bit, sort of like, obviously we've met before and we've had lots and lots of chats. And one of the things that we do here is address perhaps two types of people overall. One is other people that do have some sort of disability, that do struggle with something in their lives. So they want to also see experience from other people, understand things better. But also, we want to reach out to people that need to understand it better, that perhaps don't have that experience and they just want to know and empathize a little bit better. And who better than you? So do you want to sort of like
Mm.
run us a little bit about, say, what your typical day is, some experiences that you've had perhaps,
Yeah.
and we can get into that.
So yeah, um, so I would describe myself as disabled, but I would say that it's obviously it's more of an invisible disability. I don't think you can necessarily tell by looking at me. Um, but I still determine it as a disability because it impacts every aspect of my life, because it impacts the way I think and I feel and I process the world. So I guess a typical day for me, it's not that exciting, to be honest. I wake up, I exercise, I eat breakfast, I medicate, and then I work. So I have I should have prepared the statistics in advance. I'm one of the people that has holds down a 9 to 5 job. It is certainly not easy, but it's definitely made easier by some of the support that I have access to in my job at the moment and in my role. Um,
You certainly do a lot more than I do before you start work in the morning. Kudos to you. Communicate very well in the morning as well.
I think for me, I'm a big morning person
Do
though, but
you?
also it's like, again, the ADHD meds, I say that the way that they work is you've got to kind of have a run up first. So, and then they keep you going in that direction. So if you don't sort of like start the morning well, your day will not be good, even if you're taking them, if that makes sense. So yeah,
Okay.
it's an interesting one.
I see. All right.
That's fascinating. Go on, Fernando. You're going to ask a question.
No, it's just sort of like, this is fascinating what you were saying about the, like getting well. So does that mean that you really sort of like try in the morning to sort of get that momentum going
Mm.
so that it keeps on, sort of, can you turn it around in the day, or, because that's an interesting
Yeah.
thing, right? If your whole day is defined by that beginning and then you can't sort of overcome that, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's a book called The Curious Instant of the Dog in the Nighttime, and in it so in it the main character talks about how if he sees like a yellow jumper or like a yellow car, that ruins his day, right? Like he can't like get back on the track. I'm pretty sure he's autistic in the book as well, right? So I'd say it's very similar. It's like, yeah, like you're saying, I've got to get the momentum up. I have to, if I take, it's almost like the feeling that I have when I take the meds is what stays with me throughout the day. So if I'm taking them in an angry or overwhelmed or stressed mood, that just amplifies that feeling. And then I'm just on it for the whole day. So yeah, it's a lot of the meds really help. They are like life changing for me. And I've been on them since I was a kid as well. So I've been on like, this is how I've lived my life kind of thing. But it's there's people don't necessarily understand. I think there is a lot of prep that goes into it. It's not as simple as just like taking the pill. Yeah, you've got to learn how to use them, definitely.
Isn't it? Of how you shape your day, really. It's you mentioned that you have kind of adjustments and support, and how you felt very fortunate to have a 9 to 5. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So I think yeah, like I said, I think it's lots of people who are like me really, 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 really find it difficult to work and hold down a 9 to 5 job. I think that I could also be one of those people, but I'm fortunate in that not only that the role that I have is very creative, and also it's a lot of mixed. I do a lot of different things in my role. I do social media, I do design, I do events coordination. It's not all just one thing, and that really helps, but also the support that I have in place. So I think that first lot of support is just in terms of I've always been a person that wears kind of not my disability on my sleeve, but I'm very openly me and myself, and I'm not apologetic about the symptoms that I may have that maybe neurotypical people don't understand or might think is rude or whatever, right? Um, so I have support in that I'm surrounded by a team of people that do appreciate that about me. But also I do have support in terms of I have support from Access to Work um, through which is like the DWP scheme to keep disabled people in employment. And while I'm not going to say that Access to Work is easy to access, easy to get, or anything like that, one of my suggestions has been, or one of my support suggestions through that was workplace strategy coaching, which is I basically have like a life coach, but for my ADHD, well, for all of it. And that intervention has been, yeah, fully life changing, has definitely really helped me to work better. And having I'm also really fortunate that the workplace coach that I speak to also has ADHD, so having that level of understanding and not having to sort of like over explain these what I would interpret silly feelings kind of thing is really great.
That's really cool. So go ahead, Joanna. Go ahead.
I was going to ask more about that. I've never heard of kind of that workplace lifestyle coach sort of thing. It's fascinating. And yeah, how did that come about? Was that through kind of a work program, or how does it work?
So yeah, again, they just I'm through the Access to Work, they basically pick what they think would benefit you most, and they suggested this sort of coaching to me. So they suggest companies as well, and it's basically I'd say it's like it's workplace therapy, but it's not quite when like I think that when therapy is talking therapy specifically, maybe is just like talking over your problems, right? What I do with my coach is we're talking about things that I have maybe noticed as a problem, like, I don't know, like my time management or I'm getting overwhelmed or whatever. And she's able to come up with techniques or help me implement techniques that help me. Um, but also it's, I think that the, I, I, I almost think that it's been so good for me because actually, because the strategy coaching or the therapy specifically revolves around work, and work is maybe the part that is the most exhausting for me, if that makes sense. It's like in the past where maybe therapy hasn't worked, it's because I didn't need help with the why do I feel this way? I needed help with the how can I make work less exhausting for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did the when they advise sort of you do the coaching, was it specifically sort of coaching to do with ADHD, or is it sort of life coaching in general and just happened that the person taking it has ADHD as well for you? And do they tailor it for you, or is it just they just said we think that you should do life coaching in general, or was it specific? Do they sort of like get somebody that might have more experience or have a better understanding of it? Or
Yeah.
would you recommend others, for example, doing it in general? Do they have to go specifically to a specific
Yeah.
route?
I do think that it could help everybody for sure. But again, I think we could probably say that about all requirement and adjustments, right? That they probably do help everybody. Um, I think that so the company, I guess to help set the scene, they're called Neurobox. So there is a suggestion that most of their coaching is surrounding like neurodivergence, right?
Yeah.
So and for me, the reason why mine has ADHD as well is because I specifically asked for someone who at least had an understanding of my brain. Um, uh, so so yeah, I guess it's I do think it's specifically for brains like mine, but I think the techniques are, I guess so recently I had a co-coaching session with my coach and my line manager and me. And what that was just an opportunity to do is like fact sharing. But one of the things that my coach could really help with is like explaining the science behind my words kind of thing. And like that can be really useful, I think, for when you're trying to, especially if somebody, my line manager sees me every day, she knows what I'm like, but maybe knowing the science behind some of my actions is
Okay. Awesome. So, um, you mentioned a lot of support that you're getting. That's really, really good. I remember we were talking and you were telling me about certain frustrations you had with online forms and all that. And it's something that, I was thinking at that point in time, a lot of people get frustrated with that. I can't even imagine what it's like to do that. And I think that a lot of people would probably benefit from sort of like knowing that. So do you mind sort of like telling us a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people would sort of like, because I think it's a problem that a lot of people need to identify with, but also a lot of people need to understand and to be convinced. Because part of what I do all the time is try to convince people to make things simpler, to find alternative ways to do things, so it will really help if you give us that inside information and inside understanding of what you go through when you do that.
yeah. I think no, you're right. I do think that the last time, definitely when we've had these conversations in the past, I was in a point where I was filling out a lot more online forms, right? And so you could hear my frustrations probably. um, it is. So there are various, I think there are so many things that are just, I think people hate filling in forms anyway, right? And there's nothing worse than when you start filling out a form and then it's like you can just tell that that form has not been designed with anybody apart from
Yeah.
a Joe Blogs, yeah, copy and paste person, right? Like, so it's like, yeah, one of the things that I said before is you get to the part where it says, are you disabled? You tick the yes box. It says, define your disability, but then you can only tick one box. And that's just a complete failure to understand like how these conditions often exist together, but also you're just a failure to kind of understand disability in itself as well. um yeah the
What's the
and
purpose, do you think, when they ask you the question? Like, is it for to shape the rest of it? Is it to get feedback just because they need to like maybe tick a form or get some statistics? What do you feel like the purpose of that question is?
I would say it feels like it is just statistics. It's a tick box, right? Or at least on the bad ones, because if I'm filling out a form where it's the only good forms are the ones that are maybe a questionnaire about like what's your experience of being a neurodivergent person or whatever, right? Otherwise, every other form is pretty bad. So yeah, I'm assuming it's just for a lot of the time. I think people go through the motions of just doing something because that's what everyone else has done, right? And so at the front of every form, you have your name, date of birth, age, like race, religion, disability, gender. Do you know what I mean? And like
Yeah,
it
because I've
just
never
seems like emotion.
right, that we always say that even if you look at WCAG guidelines, WCAG
Mm.
being the sort of like
Mm.
guidelines that we should follow, they always sort of say, offer alternative ways of doing things. And there's all these guidelines, but I've never seen the form where they go, how can we help you? And then you answer some questions, and then the rest of the experience becomes tailored or helpful to
Mm.
you. You have to sort of produce your own help in a sense, but that provides the assistance, but you have to do it.
Mm.
So I was just wondering, you brought up a really good example of forms that I've never seen. Have you ever seen a form that asks you a couple of questions or does a couple of things, and then it tailors the web or site
Mm.
or form to your experience? You've never seen, I've never seen that either. So
No, and you're so right on the whole like the if you need access requirements, get in touch, right? It's and this isn't even I wouldn't even say I'm a comms officer myself. I'm not even perfect in this section either, really, because there is always a next step, and you almost don't realize how frustrating it is for the other person, right? So it's like an example, sort of an example that I'm going through at the moment is so I'm doing a like a little social media qualification, and on all the forms, even in the beginning, I made it really clear that disabled, I said, because you're doing a qualification, there's going to be some tests. I made it really clear that when I was in school and university, I had special requirements. These are my special requirements. Mostly it's that I sit exams alone. I can't be with other people. They're way too distracting. And I want, yeah, and I concentrate better alone. Oh, I just want to do the exams alone. And and I'm now like 6 months into this qualification, and they've only just picked up that form, and they've only just and then it's so then right, you get sent a form to let someone know, right? They send you a form to let someone know what your preferred communication styles would be. Okay, so it goes like telephone, email, whatever. And so I think I put like, if you can ring me tomorrow, telephone, otherwise email, right? And then it's 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. It's, oh, we're still going backwards and forwards over this email, trying to support. And it just should not be that difficult. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when you've made it, when you've made it so obvious from the beginning. But I do think it's just like people, especially in schools, and schools aren't perfect either, but they do have it set up. You have a Senko, you have an SEN team, you have like if you tick that box, you can get that list of support underneath. I think in the adult world, there's just still not quite this. Yeah, there's still this disconnect in that I don't know, people don't expect to see disabled people still needing support, but just out living their lives or just doing social media qualifications or whatever, do you know?
And the way you talk about it as well, it feels like the intent is there, the intention is there, but they've almost wrapped it in processes and forms, and they've missed the kind of the point of it. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of lost track of that kind of the intention behind it is this is a human being and this is a person we're speaking to. Ellie, how can we work together? How can we best work together? That's it comes down to that conversation rather than, oh my gosh, what processes do we need to put in place? What, you know, tick boxes and forms and communicate, how it stiffens what is actually a really personal human experience. And I'm a big fan of always saying, you know, sometimes things can be solved in a quick chat much more effectively. Because the more layers you add to that and the more kind of guardrails almost, you're almost like putting boxes around things doesn't help it. Help hold it, and that's about it.
It brings out a lot of issues that you can see again and again. Like is first of all, it comes the sort of compliance and the legality of things. So people will say, okay, we have to do this. So okay, and then somebody might say the very, very unfortunate, what do we need to get past that line of making this accessible? So that we can tick a box if anybody has any issues. That's the first issue we're having. The second is that we design systems um, thinking they're accessible without involving people that know how to basically what they need. So we don't have that co-design, we don't have that participatory design,
Yeah.
inclusive design when we do that. And that results in systems where people go, yes, we've put in a lot of effort in these. So, we've included alt text, we've done all kinds of stuff, and we have accessible systems, and we've really put a lot of effort. And that's better than just like, do we tick a box? But it's still sort of not there. And
I think
you
it
know,
back to what Ellie was just saying as well around that kind of, it has to be perfect.
yeah,
Nothing is ever perfect. But by trying to make the perfect process or the perfect form or whatever that is, automatically shows that it's never done. You're never going to meet everybody's needs all of the time, which is where that kind of perfection is actually holding us back in many ways.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more of your experience. You said, when you were talking about your role, I'm a comms officer, and we can never get things perfect.
Yeah.
That's part of the beauty of it, and I'd love to hear more of your experience in that.
Well, I was going to say, building on the whole, if we're talking about interventions as well, like what doesn't work, I think building on that point as well, when I think about the interventions in my life that have worked, it's, I can think of basically 4 occasions where, or just these at various points in my life, these incredible women just sort of picked me up off the floor and like helped me. And most of the time, so they were there was a person at college who was like my study skills provider. And then there was a person at university who worked in the Go Wales team, basically, which was an internship scheme specifically for disabled or ethnic majority, I think, as well. It was like protected characteristics, effectively. And then now with my workplace strategy coach, when I think about these interventions, they were not a one size fits all. They weren't a form. It was these people genuinely got to know me and saw what my support needs were and how they could help. And I think we get bogged down in the sort of resource of it all. But actually, with some of these women, I only met them probably for like 6 hours total, right? That's not even like a day. And it takes 6 hours to build a form, like 6 hours to build and test a form. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not actually talking that these personal connections would impact efficiency, I don't think, either. And all it would mean is that actually the support would be better and would work better. But on the not being perfect thing as well, you're totally right. I think, how many times do you meet people, or at least I'll have conversations with people where they are so scared to use the wrong word or the wrong language in front of me, which is just hilarious to me, because I don't necessarily think that I always use the right language either. And I also think that it can just, if someone is stressing so much about what they're going to say rather than just saying it, like, it's not useful for anyone, is it? Right? I always try and say that I'm going to focus more on someone's intentions rather than the words they're saying. Like, if someone uses a word that maybe is offensive, right? If you put it on twitter.com, like, but I know that they're not they're not slurring at me, right? They're just saying that word because that's the word that they've used before. I'm not gonna tell that person off or like make them feel awful, because what's the point? I'm just gonna say, because you can understand that people are coming from a good place. But yeah, that's also, there is a lot more work that needs to be done. So I did a little talk for the Centre for Digital Public Services during ADHD Awareness Month. And in that talk at the end, I sometimes I forget that not everybody's in my brain. At the end, I was talking about how like open plan offices, basically about like smells and noises and lights, and how they're all just very overwhelming and overstimulating for someone like me. And this woman at the end sort of was like, oh, I don't like the smell of fish either. So like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, why would you want to do that kind of thing? And it's weird how sometimes it's just the connections, the little similarities that make people have that understanding.
Yeah. And I think it's that curiosity as well. If you're worried about using the wrong language, you're already further along in that journey in terms of that being curious and inviting that conversation, leaning to it. Don't close the door at that point. You've come this far. That's great.
No, you're so right, actually.
And this is why sort of these conversations are important, because it's just letting people know that it's okay to just try, and we need trying rather than that perfection or anything else. I mean, Joanna and I have been playing sort of like a game of understanding for years and decades now, and practicing it, and we get things wrong. I mean, I can't say about Jenna, she's much more on the ball, but I get things wrong all the time. I mean, I remember a time, Jenna, I remember when we had that conference where some people wanted sort of light because they wanted an interpreter, and then the other person said, no, I need low light so that I can. So it's very difficult sometimes to get it right, no matter what you do, sometimes it is. But the whole point is just to try and understand it better, and to do the best that you can and be adaptive, and actually everybody working together, and putting in their best sort of effort to do it.
Yeah, and I think opening it up as well in terms of, do you know what, we can't get it right. We know that different people have different, and we cannot, this is a live event in a room. We can't turn the lights down and have them bright to meet all. So let's have that chat to see where that sweet spot might be. Where is that? I remember that conference, we actually dim the lights and then put like a torch on the face of the speaker so that the interpretation would work well. So it's having a good enough conversation, opening up the conversation to just talk that through. And I think compromise and curiosity and just a good old fashioned chat is where people understand then that the intention is right, but it's more than intent, it's action behind that as well. That continuous improvement, getting a little bit better each time and trying is quite powerful.
And passing it on, right? I mean, the stuff that you're saying, Ellie, right now, everybody's listening and we're learning and everybody's learning. So, these experiences, somebody might go, oh, by the way, now that I know when I'm creating a form, I need to just pay a little bit of attention, or when I'm organizing an event, that's, and it's all about sort of just bringing out these experiences that you might have. So yeah, so thanks for that. Is there any time that you can think of something that you want to say to people that, as an encouraging sort of statement to them, something that they can do, or something that you'd encourage people to perhaps take more on board? And I don't mean just people designing a website. I mean anybody that might also be watching this, listening to this, and go, I can relate to Ellie. What should I do more of to improve my life?
Yeah, I think that definitely my whole sort of existence has shaped the way I experience the world, right? And so as a result in that, I I I really believe that I always see the best in people. I recognize that people aren't just bad. All behavior is communication. Okay. I think that the power of community and connections are really important. And community and connections is not an echo chamber. It's a supportive network of people that believe the same thing but can still question you, right? And actually, the other thing I think you can take away is that I talk about the fact that my access requirements, whenever I've implemented them in a workplace before, actually end up benefiting other people as well, like everyone, right? And so if you can, and I think that can work on a larger scale as well, right? I think that there are, if you are, if you're struggling, but maybe you don't have a label, don't feel like you need to get the label in order to create the change, right? If you've got, if you notice a problem and there are ways that you can fix it, start spreading that change. And actually, people want to feel better, and people want to feel good. And so when they notice that, like, these sort of small adjustments or little changes to how you're living your life are making things better, then everyone wants to replicate that as well. So yeah, just make the little changes.
Have you got any examples of those sorts of things that you've implemented in workplaces that made it better, but had those kind of happy coincidences and improvements for other people as well?
Stuff like simple things like agendas for meetings, and like it being whether it's in person or online, you know, like simple things like that, really. We're talking, just having our workspace being better, so there being like quiet zones and also louder zones where people can take their calls if they want. I'm thinking, what else? Other adjustments that I need. Emails. Oh, like better communications. How many times do you read emails from people and you're like, what are they asking me to do? Just the clear and honest communication. Like, I think people are so scared of typing in a straightforward way because they think that comes off as like hostile. But please just send me bullet points. Talk to me like I'm really stupid. Like, please, like, I just need lay things out in clear steps. It works better for everybody. Use examples.
Ellie, thank you so much for sharing your experience so openly. I know that these conversations can be personal. We really appreciate your honesty in them. We hope that this helps other beautifully diverse humans, think differently, consider how others may experience the world, and create a more inclusive world, ultimately. So thank you so much for sharing that experience with us.
You guys, thanks.